Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Life of Barney, and today we're making pizza dough. Today's episode is actually the first part in a two-part series. In this one we're going to make the dough, and in the second video, which will come out a little bit later in the week, is where I will actually be grilling the pizza on my Weber pizza stone on the Weber Smoky Mountain. Before we go into the ingredients and the process for putting the pizza dough together, I want to give a quick shout out to my wife Holly. Typically Holly is the one that's putting the pizza dough together. I become very fumbly and get very sticky hands when it comes to working with dough. And I end up ruining the dough because I'm not very good at handling it. So shout out to Holly, who normally does this. And then if we back up in time even further, I want to give a shout out to Rich at the King Edward Pub in the village where we live here in southwestern Ontario, who gave us this recipe, and where he got it, I have no idea. However, I wanted to make mention why I think it's important to make your own dough, if you can and if you have the time. In our household, it's especially important for us to try to make things like bread and different types of dough for pizza, for instance, on our own, because I have a food sensitivity. I can't eat anything that has any type of soy product or soy byproduct in it. I get very sick. As a result, typical ordering pizza, takeout, delivery, whatever the case, they almost all have some kind of soy-based product in it, either in what they grease the pan with, or it's in one of the toppings or whatever. And it's just so hard to control. It's easier to make it ourselves. So our Friday night routine is pizza night. This recipe, with the quantity of ingredients that I'm about to list out, should yield about 3 medium-sized pizzas. So between Holly and myself, we may have 3 pieces each, and there's usually about 3 left over, so you could probably feed 3 people with maybe a small side, and everyone would be content. Let's look at the ingredients. So I've got my handy-dandy list here, and the reason I need to read this off, folks, is because you will notice that for the ingredients, I'll be giving them according to weight, except for the liquid ingredients I'm going to be giving in milliliters. Typically what a lot of people are used to, including myself, as I said, Holly's normally the one putting this together, but normally I'm used to seeing things like how many teaspoons or how many cups of something. But if you want to make a dough that is consistent in the way it's being made, you have to take into account things like flour, for instance. If flour is packed very tightly, that's a perfect example of this cup is here, right? 2 cups is at the top. Well, if it's a nice finely sifted flour, it will weigh less when you have 2 cups. If it's packed very densely, it will weigh more when you have 2 cups, meaning there would be more flour in the 2 cups. It's not always the same. So it's important to go by weight. Having said that, get your pen and paper ready. We have 5 ingredients, 6 actually with the water. So, number 1. Flour, 779 grams. Salt, in this case we're using pink Himalayan. You can use whatever kind of salt you want. 15.6 grams. Sugar, 7.8 grams. Oil, we're just using regular olive oil, not extra virgin. This is regular olive oil, 11.8 milliliters. Yeast is 3.5 grams. And last but not least, not shown on camera right now, is water. Sparkling water at room temperature. Just a little bit warmer. Just a tiny bit warmer than room temperature. 514 milliliters. It's just under about 2 1/4 cups. Sparkling water. Okay, first we will mix the flour. I don't want to lose too much flour and screw up the mixture. Okay, we're gonna tighten this bad boy back onto the stand mixer. Perfect. Mix the rest of your dry ingredients. Here we go is the salt, sugar, and the yeast. If you're lucky enough to have a stand mixer, which will make this process much more easy, lock her into place, and you just want to mix it on a low setting. You don't want this whipping around. We're just looking to mix all the dry ingredients, and then once it is thoroughly mixed, we'll be adding in the wet ingredients. All right, this was going for about 30 seconds. We just turned it off. We're just trying to mix things around. Next is to measure out the water. Make sure you've got yourself, doesn't have to be an expensive scale. You need two functions. You need to be able to cycle through the units of measurement. I've got it set to milliliters right now. And you need to be able to tare the weight, which means when I add my measuring cup and it tells me some number here, I can click the tare button and it now treats that as 0. Get your sparkling water. We're fortunate enough that we have a soda stream, but any bottled sparkling water will do. Just make sure you don't actually use a flavored sparkling water. That will make for some weird pizza. 514 milliliters. Here we go. Ooh, Nelly. Oh, that's it. I've ruined it. It's 523. I'm just kidding, folks. That's going to be fine. But for the purpose of the video, I'm going to fine tune this and get right down to 514. Nothing to see here. Next, lift up the top of your mixer here. You want to slowly pour the water in. Close up the mixer. Again, you want to mix this for 5 minutes on a low setting. Let it do its thing. And of the couple milliliters that I dropped, I'm going to clean that up while this gets mixing. Hiding behind the mixer is the oil. So when your dough starts to thicken up, you'll be putting the oil in. Coming up to about the 1 minute mark, we're going to pour the oil in. That's been 5 minutes. A couple things I want to point out. If you are using a stand mixer, don't forget, we'll lift this up here, when the dough sticks to the hook as it's mixing, a couple times throughout the video we did have to turn it off, lift it up, pull it off of the hook back into a ball so it would continue mixing. Otherwise it just spins around in a circle and doesn't do anything. Now it's time for the part I hate the most because I'm not very good at it, but I have to start practicing at some point, is to get the dough into measured amounts and put it into the bags, which will then go in the fridge, where it will stay there for 3 days while it rises. Trust me, you may be thinking 3 days just to wait for the dough to rise. It is absolutely worth it. And you freeze anything you're not going to use after those 3 days. Pull it out of the freezer for a party or something like that down the road, whenever we're allowed to have parties again. We're looking for about 15 ounces per bag. Don't forget to actually place your bag on the scale. It will register a weight. Hit the tare button to zero it out. Otherwise, the weight of the bag will actually count towards what you think is the weight of the dough. I'm not very good at handling dough. But Holly's behind the camera and I'm in front of it, so I don't have much of a choice. Okay, you're just gonna take, it's about a hardball sized amount of dough.
Take more than you think you need.
There we go. Take more than you think you need. Okay. Let's see how I did on my first try. 11.7. Not bad. Close. Take a little bit more. Just for the extra few ounces of dough. Okay. Name of the game, take more than you think you need. Well, so if you get a little bit more or a little less, at the end of the day, it's not going to make that big of a deal if you're within an ounce. It's 14.7, that's close enough for me. 1 down, 2 to go. $16.4, and I've got a little left on my hands. I'll try and make it in there, but there you go. 14.7, 14.7, 16.4. Before I throw these in the fridge, I'm actually going to take a pen and mark the outside of the bag so that I know what the weight is of each one. Typically this is more important if you want to make a couple personal sized pizza amounts that are down in like the 10 ounce range, 9 ounce range, something like that. But if you want to feed 2 people or a little bit more, then the 15 to 17 is what you're looking at. And this recipe will yield that many, as you can see here. Okay, I'm gonna clean up my hands. And before I seal these up, you do want to push some of the air out. You don't need to completely push all of the air out. But you will see after 3 days when you take these back out, they do swell up with air quite a bit because of the activity of the yeast. If it looks like the bag is going to blow, you do need to burp it, because if the bag blows up, then the dough is going to continue expanding in the fridge and you're probably not going to be able to use it. I'll see you guys in a minute. Well, folks, I hope you had a couple good laughs at my misfortune or at my expense. I'm not very good at handling dough, like I said in the beginning of the video. Holly's normally doing this, but it's a great recipe, so if you can stay with me while I'm doing this little dough adventure, it will pay off in the end. I'll see you folks in 3 days. Don't forget to keep an eye on your pizza dough because it is going to bubble up. Those Ziploc bags are going to fill with air, and you are going to have to burp them if they look like they're going to burst. So check it in the morning, check it in the evening. I will see you folks in 3 days when I will show you what I do for the various toppings, and when we throw them out on the grill with the Weber Pizza Stone on the Weber Smoky Mountain. See you in a few days. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions in the meantime, leave them in the comments section. Slap the like button and please subscribe if you haven't already, because it lets me know people want to see more videos. All right, folks? And don't tell my parents, wait a minute, I wasn't smoking in the backyard. I'll see you next time.